What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Got Pika Pika no Mi and Became the Yellow Flash Part 7. Now let's begin. The second day of school was rather uneventful. I had underestimated the pace at which things progress at the start of the school year. I would have been aware if I had taken junior high more seriously. However, since I could bypass it, there was no compelling rationale to visit that place. Naijuru appeared equally uninterested as I am, while Shinso stands out as the only one in my friend group who actually pays attention in class. And he does that because he is aiming to transfer to the hero course. Naijuru also aspires to become a hero, although his level of determination may vary. I will begin their training once classes have concluded. Both individuals could benefit from focusing on their physical fitness. Shinso appears to have a knack for building relationships, which is something I could improve upon. He has already made connections with many classmates, but he still chooses to spend lunchtime with our small group. While attentively listening to Present Mike discuss the nouns, I received a phone call from Nezu. Mike appeared to be in need of assistance, looking at me with a helpless expression. Cell phones are not permitted during class. Alright, instructor. Indicating that, I swiftly exited the room and substituted myself with a duplicate. I completed the task efficiently. Only he and Naijuru were observant enough to notice. Naijuru wore a sly grin and muttered something unpleasant in my direction. Mike remained relatively unaffected by this. He carried on as usual. Responding to Nezu's call, I made my way down the hallway. "Hello, boss. How are you doing?" The next question he asks is something that I should have anticipated. "It's wonderful to receive a message from you, Naruto. Excuse me. Could you please make your way to the training grounds? You still have responsibilities to fulfill at this establishment." Wonderful. Receiving a last-minute notification seems to be Nezu's preferred approach. Certainly, Nezu. I just mentioned, I wasn't engaged in any significant tasks at the moment. In the future, it would be beneficial to focus more on class. I simply disregarded his comment and proceeded to the training grounds. These locations are also used as the testing grounds for the entrance exams. Interesting how that is. I'm curious about the class I'll be teaching today. I hope Bakugo isn't involved, as he tends to have strong opinions that he may direct towards me. Words that I find uninteresting. I swiftly made my way past the male teacher's changing room and donned my attire. Given the occasion, I want to ensure that my attire is appropriate and fitting. Upon arriving at the training grounds, a group of students caught my attention, each exuding their unique presence. Based on the characters I recognize, it appears to be Class 1B. Through their assistance, I had the opportunity to meet Vlad. I had minimal interaction with him during my time at this company. However, we were still colleagues, so there is still a certain level of familiarity present. "Hello Vlad, what is our agenda for today? Why do you require my assistance at this moment?" I had my own classes already, demonstrating my expertise. First years in the hero course all had classes with me. I believe my first official class with 1B is scheduled for 2 days from now. Today, you will be providing a demonstration to Class 1B, showcasing the impressive range of abilities that emitter quirks possess. This will be done in a team setting, where they will have the opportunity to interact with you. Yes, I can do that. But why? Vlad King possesses an emitter quirk as well. Why does he expect me to hold the demonstration when he's the homeroom teacher? He appeared to recognize my state of confusion. He also figured out the reason. You will be conducting the demonstration, and I will provide feedback to the students regarding their performance after they engage with you. Furthermore, it is not permissible to directly criticize the students. He began discussing the regulations of this competition. It seems that both groups will consist of 10 individuals. They should make every effort to successfully strike me. The students appeared to be somewhat perplexed by the wording of this. Some individuals were displeased by the suggestion that they would be unable to make contact with their adversary. It seems like they are still new to the concept of power scaling in the world of heroes. One individual who stood out was Tetsu. He appeared to be very angry. "Yeah, right. We will thoroughly defeat that tall individual." Monoma, his friend, appeared to be encouraging him. "Well, it's about time we prove to the staff that they shouldn't underestimate us." Am I some sort of unsung hero or what? Let's maintain a professional attitude. Everyone. That is a highly esteemed hero, ranking at number 3. Itsuka firmly redirected their attention, taking charge of the class as she began her lecture. Her lizard companion couldn't help but chuckle at the sheer absurdity of the situation. Setsuna appeared to have knowledge about me. I simply stood there, completely taken aback. Why is my identity not widely recognized? I am a highly accomplished hero, ranked number 3 in the world. It was evident that I had made a positive impression on certain individuals. However, the other entries on the top 10 chart receive widespread recognition. Itsuka and her classmates all introduced themselves in a professional manner. Setsuna appeared to have a sense of familiarity towards me from a previous encounter. Hold on. Are you also a student from the general course? Did their class attend the assembly? I never bothered to check. Indeed, I am. By the way, my name is Naruto. I greeted everyone in the class. This encounter with their class really affected my self-esteem. Have you all finished with the introductions? Let's get started with the training session, then. Vlad gestured towards the clock, indicating to us. The initial group was intriguing. I can't recall all of their names. However, it included Ibara, Itsuka, and Korwaro. That's the extent of my recollection regarding them. The trial itself was not difficult for me. The focus was not on maintaining a professional distance between me and them. I continued to produce my work in the face of those who criticized me. The individual with rotating limbs was the first to approach me. He is a close-range fighter. I skillfully evaded his attack and swiftly gained the upper hand by stepping on his head. That action caused him to tumble headfirst onto the ground. Vlad informed me that I am not allowed to engage with the students. He made it clear that I am not allowed to touch them. This doesn't meet the standards I would consider satisfactory. While I was engaged in my work, a girl unexpectedly cultivated a cluster of mushrooms in my vicinity. She generated a smokescreen in my vicinity, seemingly in an effort to impede my line of sight. I sensed another student approaching me with great intensity, transforming into a formidable force, as Korwaro attempted to stealthily maneuver around me. Their coordination appeared lacking, as the beast quirk charged into the smoke and dispersed it. In addition, he collided with both Korwaro and Itsuka. Korwaro was swiftly rendered unconscious. With my expertise, I swiftly dispersed the lingering smoke and everyone in the vicinity with a precisely executed explosion. It appeared to intimidate the mushroom girl and leave the beast guy stunned. Itsuka attempted to launch a surprise attack, swiftly approaching me from my left side. However, she was unsuccessful as I skillfully evaded the person attempting to approach me from behind by swiftly stepping backwards and leaping over them. He swiftly extended blades in my general direction. He appeared to have overlooked the fact that he was part of a team. Some of his blades narrowly missed Itsuka, guiding me to erect a protective barrier in front of her and intercept a portion of them. Itsuka glanced at me with appreciation. Only temporarily, though. I efficiently utilized my light to swiftly fashion some restraints and immobilize the individuals in close proximity to me. Ibara attempted to seize this as a chance to apprehend me. She reached out her vines towards me, attempting to capture me. I recently sent a few chains and entangled her vines. I refrained from exerting force on them, as doing so would essentially involve tugging on her hair. After a period of skillfully maneuvering and effectively defending against incoming attacks with my expertly crafted light constructs, the timer expired. Itsuka and her group appeared exhausted as they collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Some of them appeared to view me differently now. The following group was quite similar. There was a lack of collaboration among the team members, and their unique abilities were not utilized to their full potential. Monoma and Tetsutetsu appeared taken aback by the swift and decisive defeat they experienced. Setsuna appeared unfazed. She likely watched some footage of my fights. Observing them, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment. Quirk usage in Japan is heavily restricted, resulting in a lack of knowledge among teenagers regarding how to effectively utilize their abilities. They possess a rudimentary grasp of their capabilities, but that's the extent of it. There is a lack of expertise to be found. One would expect a government to eventually recognize that quirks are inherent to our identity, and that prohibiting their use only limits the people. It's understandable they have concerns about individuals using them for malicious purposes. However, that still occurs regardless, so what is the purpose? Issuing fines to individuals for using their quirks without reason appeared illogical. People could only practice their quirks in exclusive underground gyms that required a significant financial investment. Wealthy individuals had their own training facilities. Typically, individuals from middle-class backgrounds would utilize them. However, it appeared that the students here had not experienced such high-quality facilities. They all appeared quite disheartened by their loss. It made me feel compelled to offer them some comfort. Don't be too disheartened. Despite our similar ages, there is a difference in experience that you must overcome. This appeared to uplift their spirits somewhat. Despite the lack of truth, I wasn't remotely sincere. However, only a select few were aware of this, and they chose to remain silent. And that's where the positive language ceased. Vlad King was highly dissatisfied with what he had witnessed. The students had unfortunately suffered injuries due to their insufficient collaboration. This was a highly unfavorable outcome for him. After witnessing the reprimand of Class 1B, I simply acknowledged them with a wave and departed. Itsuka appeared to have something to communicate. However, she can prioritize that at a later time. They'll need to carefully prepare a lecture for their class. This is frustrating. I had initially intended to confront them during the first lecture. Now doing that would just appear redundant. I will consider that at a later time. Now I also need to understand the unique characteristics of my friends in order to effectively train them. I am already familiar with Shinso's quirk, so I can begin strategizing right away. He simply requires physical training. Perhaps even provide training to encourage individuals to respond assertively. I'm not quite sure what insult training would entail, but it does sound like an enjoyable experience. Physical training will be manageable. I have several years of experience in this field. On the other hand, Naijuru, he prefers to maintain an air of intrigue around his quirk. I don't quite grasp the reason behind it. However, he takes great pleasure in appearing self-satisfied whenever questioned about it. Upon returning to my class, Mike's lecture had already concluded. He was exiting our classroom. I simply dismissed him. Teacher Mike, I trust that my attendance in this class will not be called into question. He seemed unsettled by the way I spoke to him. Rest assured, Nezu has assured that any absences during class will be pardoned when assigned work. His smile appeared somewhat forced. I simply patted him on the shoulder, expressed my gratitude, and continued on my way. Upon returning to my seat, Naijuru was the first person to greet me. Naruto, it's wonderful to have you back. I found his tone to be rather derisive, which I didn't appreciate. Asserting my dominance by delivering a forceful blow to his head seemed to establish my authority. I learned this technique from a highly skilled individual. Garp's Fist of Love was an incredibly potent technique that aimed to inflict minimal harm while still delivering excruciating pain. Nice to see you. That was the greeting I could come up with as I prepared his head. I only stopped when he appeared to express enough remorse. Shinso also chimed in, attempting to join our conversation. Everyone, please refrain from arguing. After a brief conversation, we discussed training and our program. Shinso, I have already prepared a well-structured plan for you. He appeared enthusiastic about the opportunity. He hadn't previously dedicated himself to rigorous training, but he possessed an unwavering determination to improve and achieve greatness. I have already discussed his quirk with him privately, ensuring accurate information in case there are any discrepancies in my recollection. Even though I was their classmate, I was considered one of the top heroes in Japan. Well, in my expert opinion, it likely held significant value for them that I was providing them with training. Naijuru didn't appear to express gratitude, but I believe he is. I hope he is. I glance at him, showcasing my most relaxed smile. I can only assist you if you provide me with information about your unique attribute. My friend with a prominent nose smiled slightly. It appears that the moment has arrived to reveal the enigma. Let's proceed without further delay. My quirk is known as Majestic Mane. He struck a confident and commanding pose. The individuals in the room stared at him, perplexed. I firmly grasped his collar and gave him a gentle shake, snapping him out of his deep focus. With a composed demeanor, he began to clarify the functionality of his unique ability. I possess a unique talent for continuously cultivating nose hair and exerting control over it. I simply gazed at him. I suspected this was a joke, but the indications were present. It seemed highly unlikely for someone of such a young age to possess such a prominent mustache. Well, I shouldn't refer to it in that manner, it was simply a nasal hair. It seems that he may have been somewhat embarrassed by this underwhelming reveal. However, he was determined to maintain a sense of pride despite the circumstances. However, what truly concerns me is, the quirk was quite manageable. If he had the ability to grow his nose hair indefinitely and manipulate it, he would have a multitude of possibilities at his disposal. Performing the duty of a hero, rescuing individuals from perilous situations and apprehending wrongdoers, was an inherent expectation. His unique ability proved to be highly advantageous in fulfilling this role. Why was he not accepted into the hero course? What is your area for improvement? It would be quite unfortunate if he failed to pass the practical exam and gain admission to the hero course. It was an area that required our attention. Well, you're familiar with the discomfort that arises when your nose hair is yanked, right? Capturing individuals can be quite frustrating and unpleasant, causing me to lose some of my hair. Oh, so he lacks strength. If there is no inherent need for him to meticulously manage and style his hair, it sets his unique characteristic apart as one of the rare ones that lacks any flaws. No discernible weaknesses. Indeed, hair may not be the most durable material, but the intricate network of intertwined threads would require a considerable amount of time and effort to escape from. If the only drawback involved experiencing some discomfort when your hair is pulled, then this could be considered one of the more notable idiosyncrasies in this school. He may still experience fatigue while using it. However, it felt more like fatigue from excessive arm movement. It would become less noticeable with consistent and dedicated exercise over a few months. Your talent is truly impressive. They'll come up with a solution for you. He appeared taken aback by my positive view of his idiosyncrasy. He was on the verge of tears, in fact. It was quite unpleasant. It's possible that he faced a lot of bullying because, on the surface, it may seem like a negative ability. Not very effective in enhancing your image. However, Nejiru's lack of proficiency in utilizing his quirk during combat was evident. He lacked confidence in his ability to master the art of combat. That's why I view him as weak. However, that behavior can be addressed. He possesses the qualities necessary to excel as a remarkable hero. Initially, I perceived this training as an inconvenience, but now I believe it will be quite enjoyable. It'll ensure that I instill the importance of standing up for oneself in him. That sounded incorrect. However, it is essentially what I need to do. Nigerian perspective. Building social connections has consistently posed a challenge for me. My unique trait caused me to be perceived as unattractive by many. It wasn't a mutation, but rather a lack of aesthetic appeal. People found amusement in me, but I never experienced any physical harassment. However, nobody came near me. I still have my mother, and her presence has been my driving force all along. She appreciates me for who I am, regardless of my physical appearance. At some point, I believed my quirk was simply a cruel prank fate had played on me. By the end of junior high, my self-esteem was at an all-time low. I strongly disliked this quirk. Getting into UA was a long-held aspiration of mine. However, I consistently struggled to remain composed during confrontations. I am not familiar with them. I also have a strong aversion to pain. Passing the practical exam seemed incredibly challenging for me. However, I was able to establish a small circle of acquaintances. This place had a much more inviting atmosphere compared to my previous school. People still regarded me with curiosity, but they were willing to engage in conversation. They made no effort to avoid me. Naruto and Shinso are the only true companions I have. Both of them appear unfazed by my presence. It seems like everyone in class is well aware of Naruto's heroic status. I immediately noticed him as soon as I walked into the classroom. He had a distinctive appearance, neither conventionally attractive nor unattractive. He maintained a strong sense of equilibrium in his life. However, I was pleasantly surprised by how easy it was to approach him. He was not the most outgoing person, but he definitely had a certain charisma. It's worth noting that many of the girls in class are quite fond of him by now. I was pleasantly surprised by how quickly we formed a friendship. However, within a day, we had already established a strong connection. We were a highly skilled and efficient team. When he initially agreed to train us, I became slightly apprehensive. I was surprised by his level of professionalism in addressing our request. It was truly satisfying to hear him accept. However, it caused me some unease. If he were aware of my unique trait, he would likely find it amusing as well. I made an effort to conceal it for as much time as possible. However, he was still eager to find out. If he was going to train us, it is essential that he possesses the necessary knowledge. It was a deeply unsettling sensation. I was concerned about the possibility of losing my closest companions. However, their response was minimal. Shinso appeared indifferent, while Naruto went as far as praising it. I'm confident he also intended it. I am accustomed to receiving sympathy. If he had shown any to me, I would have definitely noticed. The sense of relief was so overwhelming that it brought me close to tears. Little did I know, this moment would determine my future. I anticipate facing significant challenges in the future. Naruto's perspective. Yesterday, I successfully devised training routines for both Nezu and Shinso. We have made the decision to commence training at the earliest opportunity. Today, I will need to allocate a few hours after classes to provide assistance. I'm intrigued to see how the two of them will ultimately resolve their situation. Eri has also begun her academic journey today. Observing her well-dressed for school was a pleasant sight, perhaps due to the evident joy it brought her. Rumi was on the verge of tears. However, she did push me away when I attempted to embrace her, claimed I was disrupting the occasion or something. She didn't have any objections when Eri requested a group hug. Rumi had a professional obligation to attend to, yet she chose to disregard it. As both of us had the honor of accompanying Eri on her first day of school, observing her briskly enter the school brought a sense of satisfaction. Parents are welcome to attend on the first day. Therefore, we made the choice to enter the room and join the queue alongside the other parents. I had gained some recognition, so people would often give me curious glances. I was only 16 after all. However, Eri appeared pleased to see us, and I don't have much interest in anything else. Rumi was attracting attention from those who were aware of our heroic status and our connection. Ultimately, a 9-year age gap remained peculiar to witness within a relationship. I suppose if I were more experienced, it wouldn't be as significant. The 9 years are not an issue. The issue lies in my current age of 16 years. The curious looks are something we have to endure at the moment. However, the gazes did not deter me from confidently holding her hand. I have always been indifferent to public opinion. Her smile indicated a lack of concern, and the gentle squeeze of my hand further confirmed this. However, all good moments eventually come to a close. Eri began her initial class while Rumi and I have tasks to complete. I will make sure to swing by and pick up Eri before I head out to train with my friends. I have scheduled classes with 1A. I'm still uncertain about what course of action to take. Perhaps I don't excel in the field of teaching? No, that's not possible. They'll simply hold Nezu or someone else accountable. Well, I suppose I can arrange for them to engage in a friendly competition. I would have them undergo rigorous training, just like they did during their summer break in the anime. However, I am the combat instructor. I have a couple more classes to complete. I spent time with Nezu playing poker. Shinso is a dedicated student who takes on the role of the card dealer. We received some criticism. However, there wasn't a lot of activity available. It appears that Nezu is highly knowledgeable in academic subjects. He can behave in this manner without any negative impact on his academic performance. Despite careful consideration, I struggled to devise a suitable plan for Class 1A. I'll come up with a solution spontaneously. I am highly skilled in that area. I proceeded towards Class 1A. I believe this was going to be bothersome. primarily because of Lord Explosion murder. However, the classroom is filled with peculiar individuals. I'm unsure if there are any ordinary individuals in the hero course. They arrived at their classroom swiftly, despite my best efforts to delay as much as I could. I have always had a distaste for things that cause unnecessary complications. I would greatly prefer engaging in the thrilling pursuit of apprehending wrongdoers for my own amusement. The teachers are the main reason I choose to stay here. Given my personal connections, it would be inconvenient to transition to a different workplace and establish new relationships. These individuals have become accustomed to my presence, so it would not be considerate to dismiss them. I observed the door. Why was I suddenly behaving like a reserved transfer student? They'll swiftly remove the band-aid. I sensed a conversation among the students inside. The bell was on the verge of ringing. I made my entrance promptly. Bursting through the door immediately caught the eye of everyone in the room. They glanced towards me. I noticed a few of their eyes widening in surprise. I suppose Nezu never provided clear instructions regarding my role at UA. However, this class appeared to have some familiarity with me, with a few exceptions. "Who is that individual?" asked a young student with unique features on his head. Kirishima appeared to be uncertain about my identity as well. I was dressed in my hero attire and everything. I was ready for them to be impressed. Not receiving recognition is acceptable. I am not concerned with their opinion anyway. Fortunately, Momo graciously put an end to my awkwardness by introducing me to those who were unfamiliar with me. "This is the number 3 hero, also a teacher at UA? Thank you. I understand that I may not have the same level of recognition as All Might, but I believe I should still have a certain level of professional recognition. Indeed, I have been here for a year now. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I will be assessing the situation and then An unexpected and disruptive blast abruptly halted my train of thought. Impressive, this individual. Yellow bastard. He hurried me, while the rest of the students watched in surprise. Maintaining a peaceful environment in the classroom is essential, I said in a deliberate and relaxed manner. Just as he was about to approach me, chains made of light suddenly materialized, expertly managing the frustrated student. The majority of the class appeared taken aback by how effortlessly I had subdued their peer. It seems that their understanding of the prowess of heroes in the field is still lacking. "Please have a seat." He described how the chains forcefully pulled him into his seat, tightly wrapping around both him and the seat. "Let's not waste any more time." I initiated the roll call. They were still taken aback by what had just occurred. However, they still responded. Many individuals appeared enthusiastic about the opportunity to meet me. It appears that Momo is a supporter of mine at the very least. Oh, and Izuku. However, he is enthusiastic when encountering any hero, and I am already familiar with him, so he doesn't count. Bakugo was loudly expressing his frustrations while firmly restrained in his seat. He became more composed during the roll call, so I slightly adjusted the restraints. Ochako appeared to be interested in talking to me. I believe she has a recollection of me coming to her aid previously. It's quite ordinary. I am highly skilled and accomplished after all. However, she is the kind of individual who expresses gratitude after being helped. Shoto was consistently reserved, as usual. Ida appeared somewhat self-conscious upon seeing me, perhaps recalling my presence from the entrance exam. Now that I have familiarized myself with all the individuals in attendance, I took a brief moment to ensure that everyone had finished their idle chatter before I began to pay attention. Please dress appropriately and join me at Gym Gamma. If you require directions, I suggest consulting a map or a similar resource. After concluding my remarks, I swiftly vanished. It'll allow them 10 minutes to get ready and make their way to the gym. I understand that you have limited time available. It's likely that they may not have a clear understanding of its location. I am still uncertain about the nature of the exercise, but when have I ever had a problem with planning? Always I anticipate that this exercise will be enjoyable. Surveying the expansive gym was uninteresting. After spending a year at this establishment, I have become quite accustomed to the standards in UA and find it difficult to be easily impressed. Waiting for individuals can be quite tedious. I suppose that was what caused me to develop a slight aversion towards Rumi when we initially crossed paths, and her lack of remorse for the entire situation. Initially, at least, she arrived promptly for our next patrol to make up for it. Something that I would consider a pleasant surprise. It's the way we came together. I suppose an initial impression doesn't always carry the utmost significance. Fortunately, it didn't affect us. After waiting for a few minutes, I noticed that some individuals were already arriving at the gym. The girls were the first to arrive. I suppose they possess a superior sense of direction compared to the male individuals. It has been 7 minutes already. If they fail to arrive punctually, appropriate action will be taken. Educator, I have a few questions for you, Momo said, appearing slightly apprehensive. What could be the reason behind their hesitation to ask questions? Certainly, it appears that we have a bit of time until the boys arrive, I said in a more polished manner. The girls exchanged glances, seemingly contemplating who should take the lead. Momo was the first one to receive the question. Are you really just 16 years old? I suppose I don't appear to be that way. The only channel that displayed my ID was the one covering the fight. The police acted promptly and prevented the dissemination of my ID by other news stations. However, many individuals had already witnessed it. They began sharing images on the internet. Some individuals found it difficult to believe, suggesting it may have been a fabrication. I was unaware of that controversy. I recently discovered this information while conducting a search for news about myself. Indeed, it's not widely known either. However, I can empathize with the confusion surrounding the subject. The next question was asked by Jiro. What unique trait do you possess? There are a few articles available on the topic, but it would be more intriguing to hear it from you. I suppose I never fully documented the extent of my unique trait. The police made minimal changes to my quirk description, primarily because I provided a concise yet accurate description. I possess the ability to manipulate light indefinitely and move at incredible velocities. I have no limits when it comes to my stamina. I have the ability to manipulate the surrounding light. Some of them appeared to be quite impressed by this description. I clearly did not mention anything about being invincible. However, Toru appeared to be quite impressed, and there was a hint of excitement in her demeanor. Educator, can you help me with my invisibility issue? It seems that the anime didn't provide a complete explanation for her quirk. However, based on my perception, there is an aura surrounding her body. The object appeared to refract light flawlessly, much like my own experience while honing my invisibility skills. I am confident that I can overcome this minor obstacle. However, not at this moment. After a brief pause, I made direct eye contact with her, which seemed to surprise her. Well, I could certainly consider that. However, it would be more appropriate to address that at a later time. You're not exactly dressed very modestly, and the boys should be arriving at this moment. They entered the gym immediately after I mentioned it. Toru appeared somewhat self-conscious. Teacher, am I visible to you? I am unable to visually perceive you, but I am able to sense your presence. Hold on, that doesn't sound right. Mina also became more attentive, wearing a mischievous grin on her face. The boy's prompt arrival seemed to discourage any hesitation on her part to speak up. I can sense the way light bends around your body. I quickly interrupted Mina, not allowing her to voice her thoughts. Toru appeared satisfied with that response. They conversed amongst themselves for a brief moment, while I allowed them to explore and appreciate the impressive scale of this establishment. Eventually, I caught their eye. Now that everyone is present, we can begin the exercise. I didn't put much effort into devising a suitable consequence for the individuals. They arrived just a couple of minutes past the scheduled time, and their professional demeanor saved me from any potential embarrassment. Now, it's time for my impromptu exercise. Similar to other tasks I neglected in the past, I now feel frustrated with my previous lack of foresight. Observing the assembled students, an idea sparked in my mind. Alright, based on my understanding, yesterday you all worked in small teams, I stated with assurance. Today, we will be engaging in a sparring session. Each and every one of you will have the opportunity to spar with a clone of mine. As I spoke, light began to gather around me, forming 20 flawless clones. This was an effective method to provide them with practical experience in a one-on-one setting, refining their instincts a bit. Absolutely. I have extensive experience and expertise in teaching. Teacher, what will be the outcome if we manage to overcome your duplicate? Shoto was the individual who posed this inquiry. Is it still possible? I will ensure that the clones are able to match the speed of the students. Rest assured, there is no need to be concerned about causing any harm. As mentioned earlier, I swiftly delivered a kick to one of my clones' heads. The kick caused the head to break apart, resulting in audible gasps from the students. The head transformed into smaller yellow lights and quickly reassembled itself. Do you see? You have the freedom to cause as much damage as you desire. It'll also ensure that they align with your speeds, making the exercise more equitable. The students appeared enthusiastic, Kirishima forcefully clenching his fists and sporting a broad smile. Bakugo appeared to be the most enthusiastic. It's possible that he was pleased to have the opportunity to defeat my clone. Izuku appeared slightly uneasy. It seems like he still lacks proficiency in utilizing his quirk effectively. I applauded and directed each of my clones to carefully escort their assigned students to a safe distance, ensuring their well-being and preventing any potential harm. I successfully directed the clones to swiftly apprehend the individuals and swiftly depart from the scene. Transporting the girls proved to be more challenging. I wanted to avoid any legal trouble, so I skillfully enveloped them individually in a radiant sphere and gracefully transported them to a different location. The conflict began shortly after they both reached a specific distance. I opted to pleasantly surprise a few of them. Efficiently and confidently, I began adapting my clones to match the unique characteristics of their adversaries. The individual in question, Bakugo, began generating explosions from its palms, matching the level of its adversary. You can imagine the composed manner in which Bakugo responded to that. The individual in question, Tsuya's appearance began to resemble that of a frog, with her tongue extending and mimicking her fighting technique. Jiro's adversary extended its earlobes and emitted light in wave patterns, mirroring her own vibrations. Taurus' adversary vanished from sight, while Kirishima's foe was enveloped in hardened light, creating a protective armor akin to his own. Ochako effortlessly levitated objects with a touch, seemingly defying the laws of gravity. Shoji's adversary sprouted additional limbs, effortlessly wielding them with expert precision. Fumikage's unveiled a replica of Dark Shadow that emitted a subdued glow, leveling the playing field for the raven-haired student, and so forth. It was easy to imitate their quirks. There was a unique ability I couldn't quite replicate, which belonged to Shoto. I lacked the means to utilize both ice and fire. Even though my lasers had immense power, their destructive capabilities made them unsuitable for a friendly sparring session. I was able to get him to replicate his ice attacks by creating structures made of hardened light. The fire aspect of his quirk would have been quite challenging to replicate, even though he wasn't currently utilizing it. Nevertheless, my duplicates began utilizing the mimicry skills of the students. I was becoming increasingly innovative with them. I also began emulating some of the techniques they would develop later in the narrative. It provided the students with valuable insights into how they could leverage their unique qualities. Not all of them were equally receptive to my assistance, but I believe this exercise will earn me more respect. The students were initially unsure of what to anticipate. After their teacher confirmed his age during the girls' questioning, they began to question the quality of the training he could provide. Indeed, Naruto proved to be an exceptional hero. His speed was widely acknowledged as unparalleled. Even his critics couldn't deny that his speed rivaled that of All Might. Those who witnessed the altercation between the two individuals would argue that he possessed superior speed. However, his level of experience may not be on par with that of a teacher. Based on the information that was disclosed, it was evident that he had been operating as a vigilante for approximately 4 years. After obtaining a license, he dedicated himself to his heroic duties for another year. He likely had limited time available to teach others. Once the girls had discussed Naruto's responses with the guys, the exercise commenced. They were caught off guard by the unexpected presence of the clones. Izuku commented that the power bore resemblance to ectoplasm's quirk. However, his assumption was completely incorrect. Some of the students were disturbed by the way the clones transformed to resemble their opponents. It became a cause for concern when the clones began to demonstrate a higher level of proficiency with their powers. It was disheartening to witness the immense strength they needed to surpass a hero with extensive experience. However, it was not surprising considering Naruto's reputation as one of the most formidable heroes in Japan. Perhaps they had become a little too self-assured. Initially, there was a belief that successfully striking a clone would pose no difficulty. That belief didn't last long. By the middle of the exercise, the majority of the students had completely given up on attempting to hit the clones. They began to observe and analyze their teacher's actions, exploring innovative approaches to leverage their skills through his clones. Two determined students, however, persevered, driven by their strong sense of injustice. Shoto struggled to make any progress against the clone of his esteemed instructor. It was an unusual sensation witnessing the clone replicate every aspect of his moveset. He had considered utilizing his fire out of frustration, but he promptly dismissed the notion hehe. In the end, he chose not to utilize the abilities passed down from his father. Bakugo seemed quite irritated. He seemed frustrated and irritated. He was indifferent to the fact that the clone in front of him was mimicking his every action. He was infuriated by the fact that there had been no progress in closing the gap between him and Naruto. He couldn't even overcome a replica of his childhood adversary. It evoked an unusual sensation within him. It reminded him of his attempts to confront Naruto during their junior high days. He had never been regarded as a credible competitor by his taller adversary. His frustration was intensifying. However, it was not aimed at anyone other than himself. Although his pride took a hit, he couldn't hold Naruto responsible for it. Bakugo and Shoto were both giving their all to inflict damage on the clone in front of them. Ultimately, neither of them made much progress as they were too focused on their own egos. Being overly focused on something of little value proved to be a detrimental pastime. Even Mineta gained valuable insights from the clone before him. It continuously hurled balls towards him, which clung to his body and rendered him unable to move. Initially, the clone focused on his feet, as per his usual routine. However, it began to affect various parts of his body, including his knees, elbows, and underarms. He skillfully crafted a series of balls that he wielded with precision, ensnaring himself in their intricate web. It efficiently incapacitated him in no time, but the balls vanished whenever Mineta was defeated, providing him with an abundance of ideas to maximize his abilities. He and the other students all began to admire their new teacher. It appears that despite being around the same age as them, he possessed a wealth of knowledge to impart upon them. Most students regarded Naruto as exceptionally skilled in combat. It's impressive how effortlessly they can recreate various styles. It was extremely challenging. However, he accomplished the task without displaying any signs of fatigue. And it would have been impossible if he hadn't remembered some of their styles and quirks from the anime. However, the students were unaware of this. It could be speculated that Naruto had studied their fighting styles by reviewing recordings of their past exercises, but that wouldn't have diminished its impressive nature. They were also very focused on training and didn't have much time to ponder this. Based on Naruto's explanation to the students, it was clear that he had to personally manage the actions of each clone. He divided his focus among numerous tasks. That alone was quite surprising. In addition to the fact that he was emulating their styles in real time and successfully holding his ground against them, it made some of them more humble. Naruto's perspective. As my designated 2 hours were drawing to a close, I began to gather the students. The time had flown by, and this exercise provided valuable training for me as well. It was a mentally demanding experience, but it allowed me to assert my newfound sense of control. Upon the students' arrival, it was evident that they were fatigued, yet exuding a sense of self-assurance. Well, everyone except Bakugo and Shoto. I suppose it's necessary to come up with a distinct approach for both of them. I will commit to performing this exercise consistently moving forward, referring to it as mirror training. Fortunately, I have the option to complete it tomorrow alongside Class 1B. Observing the students, a slight smile formed on my face. It seems that most of you have acquired something. My confident smile seemed to exude a sense of accomplishment now. Ida responded, promptly lowering his head in a respectful manner. Educator, I deeply regret my lack of professionalism during the entrance exam. I casually dismissed the issue, saying no need to worry, you were unaware of my identity. I can see why you might feel that way. He appeared to be somewhat reassured after hearing those words. That's all. Next week, your tasks will remain unchanged. We will persist with this training until you successfully overcome my duplicates. The majority appeared content with this. It's a relief that I didn't have to come up with something fresh for everyone. Only Bakugo and Todoroki. Well, Bakugo should be perfectly capable of learning after a while, given his intelligence. However, Shoto's approach seems to be overly focused, consistently restraining himself and showing reluctance to acquire new knowledge. I unconsciously let out a sigh. I should have been more discreet, as the students were already heading towards the changing rooms. However, Ochako remained present, standing in front of me, appearing slightly apprehensive. What seems to be the matter, Ochako? My inquiry snapped her out of her daze. She was probably feeling overwhelmed about how to handle this. However, it should be straightforward. Do you recall our previous interaction? I mean, back when I was younger, you rescued me from a blazing apartment in this city. She observed me for a moment. I deliberately observed her for a moment before responding. Yes, I believe I recall our previous encounter. Hope everything went smoothly for you afterwards. I wanted to express my gratitude for your assistance. My parents also had the same intention, but you vanished abruptly. She spoke with a downward gaze. This person truly embodied the essence of Izuku, but in a female form. Based on my recollection, she was not from Mizudafu. It is possible that her parents were visiting relatives and they chose to bring her along. I let out another exasperated breath that I am highly skilled and experienced, so there's no need to be overly concerned. She appeared surprised, her eyes widening as she glanced at me. I do appreciate the gratitude, though. I transformed my casual smile into a comforting one. She also began to smile with joy. After some time, she departed and extended an invitation for me to visit her home, where her parents could express their gratitude in a more formal manner. However, I convinced her otherwise as it was unnecessary. I had a busy schedule as well. Her parents resided in a different prefecture, which would require a significant amount of time. Once she departed, I remained in that spot for a period of time. After enjoying a brief moment of tranquility, I contacted Shinso and requested that he bring Naijuru to meet me at the gym. I still had to begin training both of them as expected. Teaching my new acquaintances was a straightforward endeavor. The majority of the tasks I assigned them involved physical training. It will take some time to bring them up to the desired level of physical strength. I'm uncertain about their chances of winning in the festival. Currently, I have developed customized training plans for each individual. Shinso was determined to enhance his language skills by familiarizing himself with a wide range of expressions. There are numerous methods to provoke someone and elicit a response from them. He should also work on developing his ability to assess people's character. However, that is a skill that will develop over time. Now he should focus on expanding his repertoire of conversation starters. I also had him engage in combat with one of my clones, in order to familiarize him with the art of fighting. Given the absence of a specific fighting style, he will need to depend on his own abilities. I never found any appeal in learning martial arts. I consistently relied on my instincts, and with my unique ability, I was always too quick to require a predetermined approach. I always adapt to the needs of the situation. If I feel the need to exert force, I will do so. If I need to cut something, I will take the necessary action. I have a preference for engaging in combat in this manner. Unfortunately, Shinso does not have that privilege. His quirk does not grant him an invincible status. However, it is a highly impressive quirk. He will eventually need to acquire a more effective fighting technique, and it's likely that he will learn from Aizawa just like in the anime. Shinso's quirk is most effective when used against villains, to be frank. They are all excessively talkative, I'm not kidding. Prior to entering this realm, I failed to anticipate the sheer annoyance that would accompany the sound of villains' voices. Regarding Nezu, his primary challenge lies in his aversion to pain. So I decided to administer as much discomfort as I could to him. Once he conquers his apprehension, I find no satisfaction in this. Typically, this kind of training can be quite intimidating for most individuals. However, he already has a previous experience with pain that needs to be addressed. The origin and cause of this trauma are unknown, but it is crucial for him to confront and overcome it by experiencing pain. It feels like I'm putting my friend through a difficult situation. It can be challenging, but I am aware of his desire to enhance his abilities. Throughout our training, he maintained a calm and composed demeanor, never raising his voice to tell me to stop. Fortunately, he refrained from using the agreed-upon safe word. After all, I wasn't going to compel him to undertake this training regimen. He made a deliberate choice. It was challenging to cause discomfort while also preventing serious harm to him. However, I successfully accomplished the task. His body was covered in bruises by the end. I had to bring him to Recovery Girl after he fainted. She expressed her dissatisfaction and even mentioned contacting Nezu regarding this matter. However, upon learning the reason behind my actions, she made the decision to assist us in our training. Given Nezu's fatigue, it was necessary for him to take a short break before Cheel could utilize her quirk on him. However, I didn't wait until he regained consciousness. I had to collect Eri and Rumi. Ensuring the safe return of both individuals was of utmost importance. What other methods can I employ to ensure a good night's sleep? I have become accustomed to sleeping with both of them, and there is no turning back at this point. Eris' initial day at school was unremarkable, according to her own account. She didn't indicate forming any connections with either Rumi or myself. Perhaps she simply didn't engage in many conversations. She has plenty of opportunities to form new friendships since her school year has just begun. Rumi also had a rather uneventful day, going on patrol and dealing with some paperwork that she found quite tedious. The bed was quite comfortable. Even Majima surprised me with something different instead of the usual sturdy bed frame. In addition, he provided me with a highly versatile mattress. It was a pleasure to sleep in. Today I have classes with 1B. However, I still need to attend some of my own classes, which is unfortunate. I haven't received a response from Nezu regarding the early graduation yet. Perhaps he is occupied with other commitments. You'll need to remind him at some point. Currently, I am leading the mirror training session with Class 1B. Emulating their techniques may not be the quickest approach, but since I have already faced them before, I can still handle the situation. The only unique trait that couldn't be replicated was Monoma's. I refused to allow him to replicate my unique ability, but I cleverly instructed my duplicate to unleash all the abilities he had copied simultaneously. Additionally, I was unable to replicate the softening quirk. I recently engaged in a professional spar with him, utilizing my skills to manipulate the environment without directly impacting the participants. Twin impact was an unusual technique to replicate, achieved by striking an object twice with such speed that it appeared as if I had only moved once. Overall, it was relatively easy to imitate the idiosyncrasies of the others. Transformation and mutation quirks are commonly imitated. Not all emitters were problematic, only a few of them caused issues. The training with Class 1B was equally productive as the one with Class 1A, although I couldn't recall how they utilized their quirks in the future. I also attempted to familiarize them with engaging in combat with individuals. I believe it was satisfactory. I highly doubt Vlad will have any complaints about my teaching methods. The homeroom teachers typically have influence over the training methods used in their class. I am confident in the effectiveness of my training, therefore I do not anticipate receiving any complaints. At this moment, Nezu summoned me to his office. I believe it is now appropriate for me to disclose that I am aware of All Might's true identity, which is not as secretive as one might think. It definitely took him quite some time. It was no surprise that the room only contained him and Toshinori. I believe that the majority of the teachers are already aware of All Might's situation. Hey there, young Naruto. Please have a seat. Nezu initiated the conversation. What seems to be the issue, Nezu? You appeared very professional over the phone, I said with a casual grin. I believe you are well aware of the matter at hand. Nezu's intense gaze fixed upon me. It appears he is taking this matter seriously. Certainly, I do. I observed Toshinori, his gaze fixed on the ground, burdened with remorse. He likely chose to withhold this information from Nezu for a period of time. However, Nezu has a knack for uncovering secrets. It is not seen as negative that you are aware of Toshinori's alternate persona. Certainly. Given my prior knowledge and the fact that I have chosen to remain silent on the matter, it is clear that I am well informed and discreet. They were likely interested in how I had discovered more than anything. I'm sure you're wondering how I discovered this? Well, I wasn't intentionally attempting to uncover All Might's identity. It's just that All Might and Toshi bear a striking resemblance to each other. I paused and carefully observed their reactions. It's surprising how much Toshi resembles All Might. Toshi's expression of surprise was justified. Primarily, individuals perceive the symbol of peace as an immovable mountain. They would never dare to compare him to a frail, emaciated man. However, that connection can still be established. Nezu agreed, allowing me to proceed. And All Might behaved in an unprofessional manner towards me. Only the instructors at UA refer to me as young Naruto's after all. Toshi's eyes widened slightly as he lightly tapped the back of his own head, letting out a deep breath and gazing downwards. I observed him for a moment. I should provide him with reassurance. Don't worry, Toshi. This won't alter anything. I will guide the future generations as a fresh emblem. Both he and Nezu stared at me with surprise. My demeanor exuded humility, exuding unwavering assurance. This was not a commitment, it was a professional statement. If someone from my generation made this comment, they wouldn't think much of it. Countless individuals aspired to achieve the top position. However, I had already demonstrated my capabilities. Very few individuals could hinder my progress in any way. Out of nowhere, Toshinori transformed, sporting a well-toned physique and a genuine smile on his face. It was expanding to its maximum extent. Hey there, young Naruto. My speech appeared to greatly captivate him, as he called out my name with great intensity. Nezu also smiled, letting out a sigh of relief. Their conversation had come to an end. Naruto effectively conveyed his message without any difficulty. His transformation into a symbol was never a matter of strength, but rather a question of willingness. They may have had doubts about whether someone with Naruto's personality would be willing to take on such a prestigious role. However, now they can put their concerns to rest. Nezu let out a sigh of relief. Most of his concerns had been alleviated, leaving only one crucial matter: the resurgence of All for One. Nezu and Toshi were still uncertain, but all the indications pointed to that individual. Despite their strong dislike for the outcomes, they couldn't overlook them. Now, it was important to inform Naruto of their findings. However, they made the decision to postpone it for a future occasion. Currently, their focus was on nurturing a fresh cohort of exceptional individuals. The initial years showed great promise, with even the general course revealing a few exceptional students. All Might can also alleviate some of the pressure he had placed on Izuku. He believed he was entrusting this society to capable individuals. I have already been working on this for a few days now, providing transportation for Era School commute, instructing Naijuru and Shinso, and maintaining the appearance of attending class. I typically ensure that I have a substitute present, as Nezu prefers when I am in attendance for class. There is a noticeable difference in the level of trust Nezu has in me. Toshi is now experiencing greater happiness compared to his previous state. I underestimated the significance of my claim on the two parties involved. I underestimated the challenges of being a symbol. For me, it seems unlikely that I will possess the same ability as All Might to effectively reassure the public. However, I should be capable of instilling fear in villains. Not much occurred in the past few days. I have a class scheduled with 1A in 2 days. I don't recall the exact date of the USJ incident. However, I believe I will be able to determine the appropriate course of action when the time comes. Currently, I am making my way to the canteen. My friends remain seated as it causes them discomfort to change positions. Physical training can be quite challenging in the beginning. However, over time, they would become accustomed to it. I might consider bringing them something to eat if I feel inclined to do so. That seems highly improbable. Unfortunately, I was unable to find an available table in the canteen when I arrived, which led to me only being able to eat in the evenings. I strongly dislike waiting in line to receive my food. However, I now have to do that. I also need to find a place to sit, as most tables are taken. I might have to bring my food to the classroom, but then I would have to share it with those two. While I was deep in thought, someone sneaked up from behind, attempting to startle me. Yes, absolutely. He'll pretend to be surprised. Naruto, it's a pleasure to see you. Would you like to join us? It was definitely Itsuka. I could easily recognize that distinct orange hair. By the way, doesn't Naijuru also have orange hair? Well, it seems like he has a lot more knowledge in one area than in another. However, there is still something to consider. Hello, Itsuka. I would appreciate having a seat. I said with a nonchalant grin. I wasn't inclined to share my food after all. This was an impressive save. After collecting my food tray, which was filled with delicious Italian cuisine, I walked with Itsuka towards a table. Seated were Setsuna, Tetsu, and Monoma. It seems like these four individuals were acquainted with each other. Oh well, they acknowledged my presence. Tetsu was enthusiastic to see me. Setsuna appeared to be indifferent towards my presence as well. Hello. Why did you invite that individual to this location? Monoma is quite an interesting individual. His lack of confidence is not ideal. It's surprising that he possesses it, considering he is one of the most skilled individuals among the first-year students. But I suppose individuals like him wouldn't be satisfied unless they are at the top, which is highly unlikely with me present. I would consider allowing him to temporarily adopt my quirk, but given his lack of a similar level of perception, he may not be able to utilize it to its fullest potential. He would also expose my phasing ability, although I'm not particularly concerned about it being discovered at this point. No one poses a significant threat to my safety, not even All for One. Despite his self-proclaimed expertise in the world of crime, there's limited room for strategizing when facing an opponent with my level of speed. Itsuka proceeded to give her classmate and friend a firm tap on the head with her enlarged palms. During that time, Tetsu appeared to become more talkative. Hello there. The clone exercise was quite impressive. I didn't realize you could toughen up to the same extent as I could. The pace of his speech was quite fast. However, having established a strong friendship with Nijire and Mirio, this amount seemed insignificant. I simply smiled a little. I possess a high level of adaptability when it comes to utilizing my unique ability. Setsuna also chimed in, acknowledging the impressive nature of my quirk. It was a rare compliment that I received. It seems that many people who are familiar with me tend to overlook my unique qualities and focus solely on my charming demeanor. It's clear that I am not seeking validation to compensate for the absence of genuine praise from acquaintances. But as a man, this is considered typical. I expressed my gratitude for their kind words. And just as we were all about to enjoy our meal, Monoma couldn't help but express his discontent, when suddenly, an alarm caught everyone's attention. I found it quite frustrating to be surrounded by the loud noises of the students near our table. The students at my table maintained their composure despite their panic. Despite their best efforts, they continued to push forward, determined to reach the doors. However, upon observing my lack of movement, they ceased their actions. If they failed to do so, I would likely reprimand them firmly. As an educator, I cannot endorse such lack of bravery from the students I instruct. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They are faced with the number 3 hero. There is a highly regarded hero who is said to be attending the school. I fail to comprehend why anyone would be in a state of panic over this situation. However, it seems that many individuals simply followed the majority without giving it much consideration. Things appeared to unfold in a manner reminiscent of the show, with Ida reassuring the students by letting them know it was a false alarm. Despite his unconventional approach, he was determined to complete the task at hand. Wouldn't it be beneficial for you to investigate this? Asked Setsuna, giving me a perplexed look, while I nonchalantly continued chewing on my partially eaten lasagna. I promptly finished the food in my mouth and replied, I am currently a student. I am indifferent. It seems that our conversation caught the attention of a few individuals. As the other students gave me strange looks, what is the reason behind these gazes? Why am I not receiving the same level of respect as some of the other professionals? Could my age be a factor? Because this is somewhat detrimental to my self-assurance. Anyway, I hadn't realized that the time for the USJ had already come. I suppose they'll need to assist 13 tomorrow. They'll gladly do it without any expectation of compensation. Considering that I wasn't included in Shigaraki's schedule, it's unlikely that they have anything planned for someone like me. Their plans are of no consequence to me. I hope they can provide sufficient entertainment, as their recent raid didn't seem particularly perilous. About 100 individuals with a few notable characters in the mix. The Nomu battle seems to be the only one that brings excitement. Tomorrow marks the inaugural and final day of the League of Villains. The day flew by in no time at all. I decided to take a break from Naijuru and Shinso. They required some rest after all. I let 13 know that I would be assisting her in the upcoming class. She appeared satisfied. I made it clear that I wanted to handle this task myself, so she wouldn't have to use up her favor. I provided a reason for wanting to observe them in order to enhance the training I provided. Aizawa had already reviewed the recording of my mirror training. He reluctantly acknowledged the effectiveness of the method, but refrained from giving any compliments. Vlad King was very satisfied with the progress of his students, stating that this method of training was highly effective for the school. It's unfortunate that I didn't consider it over the past year. My residence was also quite bustling. I also wanted to begin covering the rent with Rumi. However, she gave me a strange look and said, I purchased this house in its entirety. Why would I want your inferior currency? It was predictable. However, I suppose it didn't occur to me. Recently, I've taken on the responsibility of contributing to the household expenses. Eri seemed reluctant to discuss her school day, possibly because she didn't find it particularly engaging. She did mention that she was able to establish a few connections. Additionally, she completed her first test yesterday. She appeared content, so I mirrored her positive demeanor. Rumi was feeling quite content today, primarily because she had a day off from work tomorrow. With both me, Endeavor, and All Might in the same city, most villains would think twice before causing trouble. Endeavor began patrolling in another province with the aim of cleaning it up. I could also do that, but my focus is not on maximizing the number of cases. For now, at least, Jiren reached out to me and provided information about a significant recruitment effort in the underworld. According to him, it seemed to have been occurring for quite some time. I expressed gratitude for his information and continued with my day. It appears that Jiren is no longer affiliated with the League. Perhaps my previous interactions with him influenced this change? It remains to be seen if I will sever ties with him, even though he assisted me in rescuing Eri. He has shared with me a number of intriguing pieces of information. It seems that Trigger is still available for purchase, but the organization behind its distribution is now much more discreet about its operations. I'm no longer intrigued by the black market. After completing the task with Eri, there wasn't much left for me to do there. However, Jiren simply wanted to provide me with a cautionary note. The antagonists were scheming a grand scheme. Currently, I am heading towards a yellow bus while wearing my hero costume. The room was devoid of any occupants as the students had not yet arrived. I must participate in this raid as it is crucial for my strategy to handle all for one. The only reason I refrained from taking drastic action is because I believe it is important for this situation to receive widespread attention. I also don't have a complete understanding of the remaining idiosyncrasies present in his body. If I confront him directly, he might employ an ineffective and malfunctioning quirk to evade capture. And I would prefer to avoid that situation. It is inappropriate for Kudai-Garaki to have discovered a method for duplicating quirks at this time. I don't believe so, regardless of whether or not he did. There is no obstacle preventing me from eliminating him before he generates additional all-for-ones. All for one himself shouldn't even be as threatening as he was in the show, although it may not have a significant impact. After patiently waiting for a few minutes, I sensed the presence of Class 1A in the distance. They appeared somewhat taken aback by my presence. I greeted them with a calm and composed gesture. Aizawa was also present, although he seemed rather indifferent towards my presence and didn't have much to comment on the matter. This morning, there was a noticeable increase in criminal activity. Unfortunately, I was unable to contribute much to addressing the situation as I was already at school when it occurred. In addition to the presence of All Might, who ensures that no situation escalates too far. Ida was the first to greet me in a professional manner. "Educator, what brings you to this place?" He was gesturing with a formal and precise motion. It would have been more professional to inform them in advance about the teachers they were going to meet. I thought I would assist 13 for today. I also have the opportunity to closely observe your unique characteristics, which could enable me to replicate them more effectively. Despite my familiarity with all of their idiosyncrasies and operational methods, the students appeared to be quite pleased to see me. I suppose my training made a positive impact on them. Well, the majority of them, displaying an air of importance. I could hear Lord Explosion Murder muttering quietly to himself. Typically, he would express his anger openly. I suppose our previous exercise taught him a valuable lesson. Perhaps my mere presence had a slight influence on shaping him differently from his portrayal in the show. Nevertheless, he no longer appears to openly provoke others. Aizawa also arrived, observing the students while disregarding my presence. "Oh, Aizawa, it's nice to see you." My casual greeting appeared to irritate him. I chose not to pursue this. My conflict with Aizawa began after that challenging test. Since then, I've been actively seeking out every opportunity to assign him additional tasks. As a response, he began engaging in similar behavior. Currently, our conflict had reached a stalemate, as the recent influx of students had significantly increased his workload. Well, he somehow managed to sleep through parts of it. However, that is simply his expertise. Typically, in my presence, I hinder his ability to rest, behaving in a disruptive manner and occasionally subtly pushing him when unobserved. I attempt to do it discreetly, but it is quite evident to anyone present in the room. Upon receiving confirmation that everyone was on board, Ida promptly boarded the bus and commenced driving, not taking the time to verify if I entered or not. I had to adopt a highly skilled approach and swiftly enter through a window. There's no way he could possibly leave me behind. While operating the school bus, I noticed the students around me engaging in a lively discussion about their unique characteristics, discussing the most powerful and impressive quirks among their peers. Bakugo didn't face much ridicule for his quick temper. I felt excluded from the conversation due to my profession as a teacher, despite receiving attention from a few individuals. Kirishima was discussing a quirk that embodies strength and courage, and he happened to mention me in passing. I wasn't fully engaged. "Teacher Naruto, will the training in our next class be similar to what we've done before?" Ida was the one who approached me about this. He successfully captured the interest of the students gathered around me. "Rest assured, we will continue our efforts until you successfully overcome the clones I create for you." Some appeared enthusiastic while others seemed upset. It's not that unrealistic, considering how slow every clone is moving compared to their potential speed. I made them less formidable in order to offer the students a genuine taste of combat experience. It appeared to have been successful for the most part. Someone's voice broke into my thoughts. "Excuse me, teacher, but it appears that something may have slipped your mind." The speaker identified themselves as Turu. "Well, that's unfortunate. I neglected to assist her." She also neglected to mention it, or perhaps she was expecting me to address it. I must establish a schedule to prevent any future lapses in memory. Apologies, Turu. I sometimes have a tendency to forget things. Would you like some assistance after today's class? She just said, "Thank you," and enthusiastically nodded her head. It's not easily noticeable to anyone else but me. Upon meeting up with 13 and completing our introduction to the impressive dome ahead, we proceeded to make our way inside. As we all entered the building and the large doors closed, the lights began to flicker. A grand portal materialized in the heart of the fountain square. Hey, is this similar to the entrance exam? Has the exercise already begun? As he was asking, Aizawa promptly responded, "Please remain still." All of the students stared at him in surprise. "These individuals are clearly up to no good," he declared. The students appeared to be intimidated by their presence. Izuku quietly murmurs about the villains that heroes encounter every day. Adversaries began emerging from it. There appeared to be a greater number of participants in the show. "What a surprising situation," I said with a confident smile on my face. "The students have finally acknowledged my presence. Some of them eventually becoming more composed. Even if they didn't have all might, they still have someone who had fought him to a standstill in the past. Well, I suppose the idea is somewhat calming." Aizawa gave me a stern gaze. "This is a serious moment, Naruto." I let out a sigh and shook my head slightly. Unexpected circumstance eraser regarded me with a professional demeanor. "I suppose it would be beneficial to create a more tranquil environment for the students." "I don't understand your point, Eraser. I don't perceive any cause for concern in their small collective. At least the previous group had fascinating adversaries. These individuals appear unimpressive." I mentioned, alluding to the bridge incident. I mentioned small team. However, there were a significant number of villains present on the square, totaling at least 300. I'm unsure if Kurogiri has already distributed them throughout the facility. However, I remain indifferent as they are still easy targets. The students around me appeared taken aback by my remark. However, Momo and Ida quickly grasped the concept. After their expressions settled, she let out a sigh of relief while Ida attempted to soothe his classmates. His efforts yielded moderate success, although not everyone was receptive. While some remained calm, either due to their confidence in their abilities or reassured by my presence, the rest still appeared apprehensive. Aizawa simply dismissed my statement with a scoff. Considering the circumstances, it seems that I was the only one in Japan who would refer to this assembly of criminals as a mere handful. However, that is their true nature. In comparison to the villains that escaped Tartaros, these individuals would be defeated quickly by some of them. Well, I believe even Overhaul and his group could have easily handled the majority of them. The only challenging ones are Kurogiri and the Nomu, both of which can only be described as satisfactory. Nomu was only able to push All Might to that extent because All Might was already at his limit. The Nomu remains superior to all other villains in this location combined. Shigaraki is quite underwhelming. He doesn't really demand my attention. Aizawa donned his goggles, clearly readying himself to charge into the swarm of villains. In the show, he may have had a shot, but this time there were significantly more contenders. I am unsure of the reason. Perhaps it's because their presence on the streets has diminished. I quickly moved next to him and gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. "It may be best for you to refrain from participating in this particular situation. I would like to have a good time." As I made my way down the stairs, the villains appeared taken aback by my presence. Although not all students may have been familiar with me, I was widely recognized as a notorious figure among those with intelligence. My name had a powerful impact on those who sought to do wrong. I would prefer to avoid any further negative media attention. So I suppose there won't be any fatalities this time, or at least not a significant number. However, it would still be reasonable for me to inflict significant harm on them, considering the challenging circumstances. I believe, letting out a sigh, I noticed the disdainful look on Shigaraki's face. I believe I overheard him mention something about a mini-boss? Well, his statement is completely incorrect. I am the ultimate authority in this domain. However, once he comes to the realization, it will already be too late. It's already past the point of no return. As I stood my ground, I halted my steps before the menacing horde of villains. I effortlessly evaded the feeble attempts of some misguided individuals to harm me from a distance. I let out a yawn out of sheer boredom as they tried to harm me, an act that left the observing students in a state of shock. I could have my duplicates disregard any incoming assaults, but they were absolutely convinced that I was the genuine article. The teachers didn't appear particularly surprised. They had become accustomed to my consistent display of unique abilities. I no longer have any interest in concealing the full potential of my quirk. I haven't been invested in this for some time, but I thought a grand reveal might add a touch of drama. While facing the villain's onslaught, I maintained a composed demeanor as I surveyed them from above. Shigaraki began issuing commands with an air of entitlement. "How terrifying," I remarked, observing them with a dismissive gaze. I swiftly materialized behind Shigaraki, leaning down slightly and gazing at the top of his head with a relaxed grin. As he lifted his head, our eyes locked in a moment of connection. The fear they concealed was expected. I stood tall above him effortlessly. "Say, how about a friendly game?" I said with a warm smile. He appeared slightly nervous. "May I ask what you're looking for?" "We are here to represent the symbol of peace. You, too, have experienced injustice from this society. Come and join us." His eyes were filled with a sense of urgency as he noticed my unchanged expression. He shifted his gaze towards me, maintaining a composed demeanor. At this stage, it is likely that he has come to understand the extent of the peril he is facing. He was deeply engrossed in finding solutions to escape from this predicament. I firmly gripped his neck, effortlessly lifting him off the ground as if he weighed nothing. I maintain a consistently neutral expression on my face. He immediately began to resist my grasp. He let out a loud exclamation of "Nomu!" A formidable creature charged towards me, its massive fists poised to strike and separate me from its master. The individuals surrounding us lacked the necessary dedication to their leader to make any genuine effort to assist him. Shigaraki made a swift attempt to decay my hand. I skillfully provided additional support with gentle illumination while maintaining a steady grip on him. With precision and expertise, I swiftly aimed 3 beams of light at Kurogira's vulnerable point. He was the sole individual I needed to eliminate entirely. Without his presence, Shigaraki found himself trapped in this location with no means of escape. I effortlessly evaded the Noma's futile punches, effortlessly transforming the failed scientific experiment into a pincushion with the sudden growth of spikes from my back. I also cultivated a sharp object from the earth and swiftly moved it aside. It paused in an attempt to heal its injuries. Shigaraki appeared deeply disturbed, as his hopes of escaping were immediately dashed and his Nomu proved to be of no help. He desperately tried to weaken my grip and break free from my grasp. However, when he attempted to use his quirk on me, it appeared to be ineffective. Light doesn't deteriorate. His eyes widened once more as his arms began flailing about, attempting to destroy everything in their path. I launched him into the midst of the nefarious gang, resembling a human projectile, effortlessly defeating some of the villains. After that, I simply clapped my hands. A beam of light materialized above the villains, exerting a downward force towards them. Its form resembled that of a boot. The villains gazed upwards, their determination swiftly fading away. I could hear the sounds of distress and panic as the barrier violently collapsed onto everything below. The students watched in amazement and a bit of trepidation as I transformed what they had perceived as a formidable army of villains into a bunch of weeping children. It was a scene that exuded a sense of professionalism. Victory of justice over wickedness. How eloquent! I observed the recovered Nomu attempting to uphold the barrier, but unfortunately, it was unable to halt its progress even for a moment. It promptly abandoned that notion, as Shigaraki urgently demanded its protection. Nomu swiftly darted towards him and protected him with its body. The ground contorted to accommodate the monstrous force, as the sheer magnitude of the barrier caused a substantial crater to form. It felt like squashing ants beneath my shoe. Only a handful of wrongdoers remained awake, putting on a facade of unconsciousness. Presumably, they were anticipating that I would show mercy and that the authorities would arrive promptly. However, the experience of witnessing the devastating tsunami on that bridge taught me a valuable lesson. Upon my arrival in the crater I had formed, I efficiently created multiple duplicates and swiftly moved around, ensuring that every antagonist was incapacitated. Only the injured and recovering Nomu and a frantic Shigaraki remained standing before me. While observing Shigaraki and Kyudai's lab experiment, my attention momentarily drifted away. I expected the Nomu to possess greater strength. I suppose it would be wise to adjust my expectations accordingly when it comes to combat. If one does not restrain oneself, it becomes exceedingly difficult to derive any pleasure from a confrontation. The Nomu alone would not have posed a significant threat to a fatigued All Might if it weren't for the assistance of Kurogira's warp gate. Upon further reflection, it appears that Kurogiri is indeed a Nomu. It's unfortunate that he has passed away. However, he should not be in a condition to utilize his quirk. Irrespective of that, Shigaraki is the sole individual I require. He would be a valuable asset in luring All for One out of his hiding place. All for One is quite a formidable entity to apprehend. My primary objective in participating in this raid was to ensure the safety of my colleagues and apprehend Shigaraki. All for One is most likely to reveal himself when he is being escorted to prison. Tartarus is currently undergoing renovations, with a complete overhaul of its security systems in progress. It appears that he will be held in a different facility. However, I will be involved in the escort, confidentially without the knowledge of anyone. However, this plan has its flaws. There is also the chance that All for One loses interest in his student. From what I recall, he has consistently displayed a self-centered nature. If he fails to retrieve Shigaraki, I will be compelled to conduct a thorough search of his hideout. I still have reservations about the idea, despite my ability to swiftly eliminate him and dismantle the hideout. It's just the discomfort of being aware that he has the ability to take my quirk. That's another reason why I believe it's best for him to leave. I have no intention of imprisoning him, or at least I don't believe it's a practical solution. He successfully orchestrated a mass breakout from Japan's top maximum security prison. Based on my understanding, his ability is limited to perceiving through infrared vision. It would be highly unlikely for him to detect me if I were to transform into light and perfectly mimic the intensity and temperature of sunlight. However, he still possesses numerous idiosyncrasies that I am unfamiliar with. He would only accept quirks if they were strong. It can be assumed that all of them are of a high standard and have significant potential when used together. If I need to take action, I must also notify the appropriate authorities. I cannot approach this one in the same manner as I did with the one at Shai Hasaikai. All Might will probably be interested in participating as well. Alright, let's get back to the present. I will consider the possibilities and uncertainties at a later time. Letting out a sigh, I gazed at the antagonist standing before me. He was scratching his neck vigorously out of frustration. You are engaging in dishonest behavior. This situation lacks fairness. He began to raise his voice and move violently. The Nomu remained stationary, displaying a complete absence of movement. It has lost its autonomy and now simply follows the commands of an immature antagonist. Well, life isn't fair, I stated in a straightforward manner. This was meant to be my moment to showcase the League of Villains and eliminate the symbol of peace on a grand scale. It's entirely your responsibility. He appeared more composed, although his emotions are fluctuating unpredictably. Nevertheless, the animosity in his demeanor was still evident. That name is not very impressive. Did you create it? His frustration grew with each word I spoke. His frustration overwhelmed his apprehension entirely. He appeared to be having a meltdown at this point. If I face any challenges, I'll ensure that others are not affected, he muttered quietly. Oh, I apologize for feeling overlooked. LMU. Ensure the safety of the students. The noise was audible even to the students on the upper floors. The instruction he provided may have surprised some students. The level of animosity this individual possesses is sufficient to intimidate even a novice hero, not to mention a student. He attempted to hastily approach me, disregarding the ineffectiveness of his quirk in combat against me. His mind seemed to be clouded by a sense of desperation and delusion. I didn't give him a second thought. The Nomu had already positioned itself in front of the teachers. However, I am able to travel long distances effortlessly, so I confidently approached it and swiftly sent it tumbling down the stairs. Everyone in the classroom went reeling at the tremendous shockwave caused by the kick. The building was rattled to its foundations by the sheer volume of the blast. A crater so large that it divided the earth underneath it was formed as the Nomu plummeted to the earth at superhuman speeds. Every unconscious villain was driven aside by the second shockwave caused by the Nomus impact on the earth. The once recognizable Fountain Plaza is now completely devoid of any trace of it. I had figured out how to take use of my speed in battle without hurting myself. It required me to kick at my fastest controlled pace while covering my leg with poor man's armament. Basically, I need to metamorphose my leg into a light before the impact reaches it. I was afraid to use it before I awakened because of how much control it requires. By doing so, I could substitute a light construct for my leg before the impact ever reached it. I wanted to test the Nomu first to see if the intricate strategy held up before attempting to apply it to All for One. I got to the kids fast. "Are you guys all right?" I didn't account for how powerful the shockwave would be when I used that method. It had pushed them back quite a distance. Ida had vanished at first. I assumed they had dispatched him to notify the others. Eliminating the door shouldn't have been a problem with Bakugo present. Be more considerate, idiot. Even the well-mannered and mild-mannered 13 was furious with me. It was a shocking sight, and the pupils were astounded. I had just vanquished a whole legion of enemies when 13 reprimanded me. They may not realize how accurate she is just yet. When battling, heroes, particularly those with strong quirks, need to be aware of their surroundings. If you happen to damage the ground here, don't worry, Cementos can restore it in an instant. However, I should have paid more attention to them. I had no idea shockwaves would be so tricky to manage. When he initially became a hero, I believe All Might also had this issue. Shockwaves are also foreign to me because my regular weapon of choice is a combination of lasers and constructs. I wanted to see how this maneuver would work on the Nomu, so I did just that. It shouldn't die immediately due to its shock absorption and regenerative abilities. I looked around a little and replied, "Sorry." Aizawa gave me a strange look as well. I dropped back down after shrugging, in which Shigaraki was in a state of terror while Nomu was making a full recovery. He had gotten into his usual tirade about how unjust everything was. With a little sigh, I swiftly knocked Shigaraki out and left him sprawled on the ground. Following the removal of its master, the Nomu also ceased to respond. Defeating the Nomu for an extended period of time was my goal. However, Shigaraki was beginning to annoy me. I have completed the initial step of my strategy. Stay tuned for more. With that, this video comes to a close. I want to thank you for taking the time to see this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and watch the following video if you liked this one.